Hi, my name is Gordon Treadgold, and on this webinar, we're going to talk about elevating your reputation. And we're going to be talking about one specific way in which you can do this, and this is through your presentation skills and capabilities. And for me, the ability to present well is critical to our reputation. And I know this from painful personal example. When I worked for DHL, I was program director for the NPS project, and I was in charge of Wave 2. And the project manager for Wave 1 had a presentation to give to the global CIO, and he was unavailable. And I was asked if I could step in and give that presentation. Now, I'd only been with the company 2 weeks and I was keen to help out. So I said, yes, I would do it. And basically, what I was going to do was just look at the information and share at a high level the current situation. So I got into the presentation, and one of the challenges we had was that we had issues with the interfaces that were not working as we designed. And the global CIO asked me which interfaces specifically are not working. And I said, I'm sorry, but I can't answer that question. And in front of 40 people, he said, well, why the bloody hell are you giving this presentation? Let's stop it now and go and find somebody who knows what's going on. I was mortified. Fortunately for me, my boss stood up and said, excuse me, but Gordon's only been with the company 2 weeks. He stepped in last minute to give this presentation, and this is why he doesn't have all of the details at hand. And the global CIO, was a bit grumpy, growled a little bit, and said, okay, go on. And I gave the rest of that presentation. But I'll tell you, for me, that was a tremendous learning. I never, ever presented to him without knowing absolutely everything. Because in that one presentation, I had completely undermined my credibility with the global CIO. My reputation was impacted. And not only have I seen it from that side, but I've also worked with somebody where we crafted a presentation and he presented it so well. Off the back of that one presentation, he was given a promotion. So for me, the ability to present is really, really important in our ability to elevate our reputation. And I would say every time you present, it is an opportunity where you're either going to enhance your reputation or you could damage it. And when we damage our reputation, it can take a long time to get it back to where it needs to be and have that good reputation. So what I want to talk about today is how we present in a way that is going to elevate our reputation and put ourselves into a good light and position ourselves for promotions. So there are three keys to giving better presentations. And the three keys are create good slides, prepare with care, and present with confidence. And if you do all of those three things, it will elevate not only your presentation capability, but it will elevate your reputation. So let's start with creating good slides. So when we talk about creating good slides, notice how I don't say great slides, because I've seen people create great slides, but then not do all of the other things that are needed in order to present and elevate their reputation. So we only need to create good slides. They don't need to be great. They just need to be good. And what does that mean? For our slides, what we need to do is we need to make sure we know where we are going. What is it that we want our audience to take away from our talk? For me, I always take the same approach. What are the three things I want my audience to remember? That is what I start with. And once I know the three things that I want them to remember at the end of that talk, it makes it very easy for me to craft a talk that is going to tell them about those three things, remind them about those three things in order that they will then remember those three things. And if we don't know where we want our presentation to go, we'll just create a presentation that wanders, and that's going to impact our reputation. So make sure you know where you want your presentation to go. What are you looking to get out of this presentation? If you're looking for budget approval, then make sure that you've been clear about what you're trying to do, what the benefits are, and what the costs are going to be. So remember where you want to go on your presentation. The next thing to remember is that we need our presentation to be relevant for our audience. I've seen lots of presentations, especially from techies, where they are looking for budget approval to start the project, and they focus on the technology and they go on and on and on. Now, I'm sure that's really interesting to you, but it's not interesting to the audience. They don't care sometimes about the how and the what it is you're trying to do. What they want to know is, what are the benefits and what am I going to get out of it? So we need to make sure that our talks and our presentations are in that intersection of what we want to say and what they're interested in. Because when we can do that, then it's going to be relevant to our audience and will maintain their interest. Next thing to do is to know your audience. A lot of time, if you're going to be speaking to CEOs and board members, they're going to want the information at a high level and they want it to be focused on the finances. You know, what's the return on investment? So we need to know what our audience is looking to hear from our talk and that we can communicate in the right way. And there's another thing that we need to understand about our audiences is that in general, people fall into one of four types of people: lions, monkeys, elephants, or dolphins. And we need to make sure that our presentations fit for each of those and that we are covering all four of them if we're trying to get our message across. Or if you're speaking to just one person, make sure that if they are an elephant, you're tagging it in a way that they want to hear. So what are the four types? So lions, they're like big picture, bullet points, quick conclusions. Monkeys, they want visual representation of data. They don't want tons of data. They want the information to be presented in an amusing format, ideally funny if possible. And we need to, they have short attention spans, so we need to make sure that we are keeping them interested. Elephants, these are people that want the data. They want to understand. They want to see the research. They want to see the data that's backing up the points. And then we've got dolphins who are interested in real life examples. They want to know about how it's going to impact the people involved. So when we're doing our presentations, we need to make sure that if we're doing it to a wide audience that is going to include all four types, we include something for each of them. And we don't want to be going too detailed. Sometimes we can put that into the backup. And if people ask for more details, we can say, okay, well, that's in the backup, and I'll share the presentation with you because we need to make sure we keep all four engaged. And if we just talk at too high a level, that's going to be great for the monkeys, but the elephants are going to lose out. But if we go way too detailed, whilst that might be great for the monkeys, that's going to lose the lions, the monkeys, and the dolphins. So make sure you know who your audience is. and you're pitching it for your audience. And if it's a broad audience, make sure it includes elements for each of them. Keep it simple. A lot of times I see people, they think that when they're presenting, the audience knows as much as they do, and that is rarely the case. Quite often you can be an expert that's presenting in your field, so you need to keep it simple. The simpler it is, the easier it is for people to understand it, and then for them to be remembering those 3 or 4 points that you want them to take out of the presentation. So keep things simple. We need to make sure that every slide includes 3 elements. We need to know what the context is. What is the slide about? We need to know what the conclusion is, and then we need content that is relevant to the information that we're presenting. So for a particular slide, it could be one that is, this is the financial benefits that we're going to see from a particular investment. So that would be our context. This is the financial benefits. Our conclusion could be that, and as you can see, this is going to be highly beneficial for the company and well worth doing. And then the content would be backing up the context and lead us to that conclusion. And if your slide, you don't know what the context is or what the conclusion is, that's probably a slide that you don't need in your presentation. So what's the context? What's the conclusion? And what's the content? So for this slide, the context is, this is what we need to include in our slide. And the conclusion is that, and if we do that, then our audience is going to understand why we're telling them this and what the outcome is that they're going to get. And then the content is going to support that journey. We need to present information, not data. Far too often, I see presentations where it's an eye chart. There's a ton of data, and you just can't read all of it or make sense of it. And what we need to be doing is we need to be presenting information. Now, you can include data to back up that information, and sometimes you might include that on the slide or you might put it in the backup. But we need to be presenting information. We need to be presenting our conclusions from the data, because if you don't and you just present data, then the audience might draw a different conclusion and then be taking a different point away from your presentation. Consistency. This is something that I learned working with financial controlling. They used to tell me that it's more important that if the profit is going to be 32.2 million, it's more important for you to use that figure throughout than for that figure to be 100% accurate. And I asked, why is that? And they said to me, that's because if you put 32.1 million on one page and 32.2 million on another, whilst people might not know which is the correct figure, everybody can see that you've used two different figures. And now that's going to raise doubts and questions about the accuracy of the information and your level of understanding. So it would be better, even if it was 31.1 million, to put 31.2 million and keep that consistent, because then people can ask, why is it this on one page and that on another? And I can tell you, I've seen that happen so many times, and people rarely have a good answer as to why. So be consistent, because it stops people challenging the accuracy and authenticity of your information. Ideally, you want to be both consistent and accurate, but consistency is extremely important. Now, I don't think I need to explain this one too much, but when we're doing the presentation, the more graphics we can use, the better, because it allows us to say so much more than we could put on our slides. On presentations, a lot of the times there's way too much text. And I used to work for a boss, and he used to ask if we put a lot of text on the slide, am I listening to you or am I reading the text? So we want to keep out the text to a minimum and try and use images and have bullet point conclusions. Now we might need a little bit more test text to back up what we're saying, but we shouldn't be presenting tons and tons of text. And if we do put tons and tons of text, people will read it faster than we will speak. And now we've lost them. They're no longer listening to us, they're reading. And when we're doing that presentation, we want them to be listening to us. We want them to be hanging on our every word. So use pictures where we can, keep text to a minimum. So that's about creating good slides. As I say, you don't need to create great slides. You just need to create slides that are relevant to your audience, that talk about the things they want to hear, that are presented simply and clearly with information, and then you'll be able to deliver a really good presentation. And when you know where you're going and the three takeaways you want from them to go with, it allows you to structure that presentation so that they go away with those three key points in mind. Now, once we've created the slides, then we need to prepare with care. And a lot of time I see people spend way too much time just on the creation of slides and they don't do the rest of the preparation. And what that means is that when they come to present the presentation, they've got great slides, but the quality of their presentation and their understanding of their presentation lets them down. So we need to make sure we prepare with care. First thing to bear in mind is that for every presentation, it takes 10 times the amount of time to prepare as it does to give the presentation. So if you're going to prepare for an hour, you need to be ideally preparing, spending 10 hours in preparation. Now, you might be able to get away with 5 or 6 hours, but what you can't do is just spend 1 hour creating the slides for a 1 hour presentation. If you do that, it's going to be a poor quality presentation, no matter how good the slides are, and that's going to diminish your reputation. So we need to make sure we take the time to prepare because remember, we are protecting our reputation. We are looking to elevate it and we should take great care of it and invest the time to do that. So one of the things I talk about is when we come to prepare the slides, we actually want to prepare them in quite a lot of detail. Create the slides longhand, include the text on them that you are probably going to say. But that is the presentation of what we'd like to say and how we'd like to do it. But it's going to be our starting point, and we include as much as we can, all of the detail. And then as we're preparing, we go through and we whittle that back to what we actually want to include in the slides that we're going to use. We might use that detail deck to read from, but that's not what we're going to share. So we should know what we are going to say longhand. If we've got 3 bullet points, create good slides, prepare with care, and present with confidence, we should know what we're going to say longhand about each of those things. So we're not trying to make it up as we go along when we're doing that presentation. So create the slides, put more detail on than is needed at that time. And then what we'll do is we'll whittle that back, but we already know longhand what it is we're going to say. So once you've created that more detailed set of slides and we're looking at whittling back, challenge everything. Challenge everything. If something doesn't need to be in, if you don't know what the context is or you don't have a conclusion for it, either find a context or a conclusion or take that slide out. Remember, less is more. Simple is about less. So we need to challenge everything. And if it's not needed, Don't include it in your slides. I remember the first time I did a 3 hour presentation to a CEO group on fast, I created 65 slides. That was 3 minutes per slide. It was way too many. Now, when I do that presentation, I have about 9 slides. And those slides tell me everything that I need to know and that I want them to see. But I can provide all of the color commentary so that they're listening to me and not just reading slides. So look at your slides, challenge everything, and if it's not needed, take it out. Know your data. On every single slide, anything that you include, you need to understand because you might get asked a question about that data. And if you put in, let's say you put in that 66 people 66% of employees are disengaged. You need to know what that means and where you got that value from, who came up with it, because somebody will ask you. And if you don't have an answer, or you hesitate, or you provide a poor answer, it's going to impact your presentation and diminish your reputation. Remember the one I told you about the start when we had interfaces and I couldn't say which ones? That nearly cost me my reputation with the global CIO. So even if you're presenting for somebody else and using their slides, like I was stepping in, go and check the data. When we know our data, it makes us look knowledgeable and capable and that we understand what's going on. And that's always going to elevate your reputation. You need to practice, 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 practice. Know what you're going to say, know the words. And when we know what the words are we're going to say and we have practiced them, that is going to allow us to speak more clearly, present more confidently, and do a much better presentation. When I did a TEDx in French, I actually went and I read through longhand all of the script. I did it 10 times in a row prior to going out because when I hit that stage, I wanted to be word perfect. And when we are presenting in a situation where our reputation is on the line, which it always is when we present, you want to make sure that you're practiced, that you're word perfect, that you know what slide is coming next and what's the one that precedes it and how you're going to link them together. And you need to practice that in order for it to be smooth and natural. You also need to look at every slide and think about what could they ask me? Think about the most difficult questions you could be asked on your slide, and then think about what the answer is going to be. And if there's something that they can ask you that you can't answer and you can't find the answer, then maybe you need to take that out of your presentation or really go and find out where it is. I remember I was watching a presentation on cost reduction. And the global head of infrastructure said we've saved $20 million from our uh, infrastructure budget. And I asked the question, where could I see that saving? And he looked at me and he started to go red as he was presenting to his peers and his boss. And he didn't have an answer. He didn't know the answer to that question. And the first thing that people assumed was he doesn't know and they haven't saved this money. And that had a negative impact on his reputation. To make sure you look at the slides, you think about whatever questions they could ask. And remember, some people will be after your job and will be trying to damage your reputation. So will ask you difficult questions. And if you're prepared, then you're going to elevate your reputation. And if you're not prepared, it's going to be the alternative. So make sure you have an answer for everything. Next thing we need to do is we need to check for clarity, and we need to do this in two ways. One, when we're presenting, we need to ask people, do you understand, and double check this. But also, what I like to do is when I'm preparing the slides, I'll share them with my wife. My wife isn't an expert in what I do, but she's a smart woman. And if she can understand the slides, even though she doesn't have the context, that means that those slides are fairly clear. If, on the other hand, I show her the slides and she tells me, I have no idea what you're talking about, or I don't know what this slide means because it doesn't fit with all the others, then you've got a problem. So make sure the slides are clear and they can be understood. And remember as well that some people might not attend your presentation and might ask to be sent the slides. So they need to be able to look through the slides and have some clarity and understanding of what the presentation was about. Now, clearly, they're not going to understand everything because there's going to be a lot of voiceover, but the slides should be fairly clear and allow them to get a good understanding of what you were talking about. And if they don't, then these slides are not good slides and you need to do some work on them. This for me is one of the most important lessons and that is that for whatever presentation you're doing, whether it's 15 minutes, an hour, or 90 minutes, you need to have a 60-second summary. And the reason I say that is because a lot of times I've seen people, when it comes to their turn to present, other people have overrun, and now the boss or whoever has said, sorry, we're nearly out of time. We've only got a couple of minutes. Could you give us a quick overview of your presentation? And I've seen people stumble and yeah, well, it's um, and when you do that, it looks like you don't understand your presentation. And when it looks like you don't understand your presentation, your reputation has just taken a little ding. So if you can talk about, for instance, my presentation here, this is my presentation now to elevate your reputation because every time you present, it's an opportunity to raise or lower your reputation. There are three key things you need to focus on: create good slides, prepare with care, present with confidence. And if you can do that, you'll put yourself in a position where you can not only protect your reputation, but you can elevate it. So that's my 60-second summary of this presentation. The other reason why I think this is such a good thing to do is that because if you can't do a 60-second summary, one of two things has happened. Either A, you don't fully understand your presentation, or it's not clear. So this is a way to check for yourself on do you have clarity? And if you can create that 60-second summary, that's going to really help you to present. And also, if you're out of time, give people that short view. So yes, they won't get all of your details, but it is a summary. And as I say with mine, you know, create good slides, prepare with care, present with confidence. When I tell you those three things, it gives you a good idea of what my presentation was going to be about. So make sure you have a 60-second summary. And quite often I'll create that 60-second summary at the start. So I know what my three takeaways I want people to take away, and I'll create a 60-second summary, and then I'll extend that into the full presentation. Now, the next and final part is present with confidence. And I can tell you for a fact, if you've created good slides and you've prepared with care, you are already going to present with significantly more confidence than if you've rushed the slides, created too many, have too much detail in them, and you haven't had a chance to prepare. That's going to be a poorer level presentation. But if you've created good slides and you've prepared with care, you've put yourself into a position where you can present with confidence. And when we're talking about presenting with confidence, speak clearly and confidently. If you want to present with confidence and have people confident in you, try and be confident about your presentation. And as I say, if you've got good slides and you've done all of that preparation, then you're going to be confident about what you're presenting, and that's going to be easier to do. But speak clearly, slowly, and confidently. A lot of time when we give a presentation, we want to give the bluff, the bottom line up front. So tell people what the presentation's about, why they should be listening. So for me, this presentation, it's about how you can elevate your reputation because every presentation is an opportunity to either enhance or reduce your presentation. So that's what this is about. And I've seen people where I worked with Accenture for a while doing some coaching, and we had some presentation training. And one of the people presented, did a presentation to the CEO. This was a practice exercise where they did the presentation, and then on the last slide, they said, and this is how you saved 20 million in revenue, in profit. And everybody went, what? Sorry, could you start the presentation again? Because now I know why I should have been listening. So that presentation should have been, we're going to talk about three simple things that are going to allow us to save us 20 million in profit. So when we get that bottom line up front, we're telling people why they need to listen, and that's going to help them engage more and pay more attention. We need to highlight. We need to highlight the key messages that we want them to take away. And the way we do that is by underlining them. And how do we underline them? We underline them by repeating what we've said. We underline them by repeating what we've said. Very simple technique that allows us to draw people to a particular point or bullet that we want to make. And especially for the three takeaways that we want to have, we should be highlighting those. And not only do we highlight those, we might highlight them at the start, during the presentation, and at the end in order that they're clearly ingrained in the mindset. If you're just going to read the slides, I don't need you. I can do that myself. And if you read the slides, it shows or gives the impression that you don't have a full grasp of what you're talking about. Now, you might have created longhand slides that you're reading from, but if you're not showing them to the audience and you're just showing two bullets and you're providing all of that detail, that's fine. But anytime you're just reading the slides, your audience can do that, which means they've stopped listening to you. And it also, as I say, it makes it look like you have a very narrow understanding. What we want to be doing is putting bullet points, and then we want to be adding colour and detail and showing that our knowledge is more than just what's written on the slides. We need to be in control of our presentations because we are taking people on a journey and we cannot let them grab the wheel because we want to be highlighting the 3 points that we want them to remember at the start, during the presentation, and at the end. And if we let people take the steering wheel, they can derail our presentation. And there are a couple of things that we can look to do to mention that. If people say, excuse me, could you explain to me why we want to do this? Then I would say, well, yes, that's a great point, but I'm going to be covering that in the next couple of slides. So if you're patient, I'll get to that in a moment. Or it could be that that's a great point, However, we've only got 45 minutes, and it would take me at least 45 minutes to explain that in detail. So, what we can do is I can come back to you and we could have a follow-up session to go in that level of detail. Um, or it could be, I've got slides in backup that explain that in more detail. I don't have time to go through them now, but if you want to check them in backup, that will give you the answers you want. So what we want to be doing is we want to be taking back hold of the wheel and then going on. So if somebody interrupts, just say that's a great point. We don't have time. That's a great point. I'll be covering that later. That's a great point. I don't have time now, but there's detail in backup that will you can look at that would explain that, because we want to take them on our journey from the start to the end with the 3 bullet points, the 3 key takeaways we want to take, and we don't want to let them hijack our presentation. And then lastly, we want to be brief, we want to be bright, and then we want to be gone. So get in, make your messages clearly, make them intelligently, and then leave your audience with your takeaways. And if you can do that, then you are going to elevate your reputation. So we need to create good slides. They don't need to be great, they need to be good. I would focus spending more time on the preparation, understanding the data that's in the slide, asking myself all of the questions, practicing, practicing, practicing. And then when you do that, that's going to allow you to present with more confidence. And then when you focus on speaking clearly, being brief, being bright, being gone, and maintaining control, don't let people uh, change the journey. Your presentation is going to be good and it's going to elevate your reputation. So create good slides, prepare with care, present with confidence. And when you do that, that's going to improve your reputation. And we can't put a price on the benefit of that. If you've got any questions or anything you want to know about this, please feel free to reach out to me at gordon@gordontreadgold.com. Thank you.